Maxey from outside. Sixers lead, courtesy of Tyrese Maxey.
Deep to left field, going back is Locastro. It is gone!
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Beef Up Front podcast here on Pick Swap Media. Your host, Ryan Coyle, continuing on today with our college football preview series. We're running through these teams. We're recording this. We're only 19 days away from week 0 kicking off between Florida State and Georgia Tech. And today we actually are going to dive into a team that is part of the ACC. And that is the Virginia Tech Hokies. They're on my list of breakout teams this year, or kind of, I guess, surprise teams. Them, along with Nebraska. Oklahoma State's another team I'm high on that, I think is starting to get a little bit more buzz. But teams that aren't your Oregon, your Ohio State, your Michigan, your Alabama, your Georgia, your Texas. These are the teams that have been waiting in the weeds a little bit and now are kind of ready to restore to power and take over again. And be one of the best teams in college football. I don't know if Virginia Tech will necessarily reach that status this year, but a team I'm definitely bullish on and I think will exceed expectations. And they've been starting to gain some steam around the country. I've seen in the media as well. A few looking at some people's like top 25 polls. They are a team that has been cracking, between 21 and 25 on some of these polls. So more and more people are buying into the Hokies in year 3 under Brent Pry. And I'm really excited about this team. And I think a lot of potential to be a double-digit win type of squad. But as always with the preview, we'll go into the head coach a little bit, go into the 2023 season, go into the offense, go into the defense, and then get into the complete schedule prediction. But we just alluded to it. Head coach Brent Pry going into his 3rd year as the head coach here at Virginia Tech. Former Penn State defensive coordinator, a rough year 1, and started out 2-4 last year, but Virginia Tech really kind of caught fire down the stretch, played really well, won their bowl game. So he's only 10-14 as he enters year 3, but a lot of momentum. It's not like he's a coach kind of sitting in dead water, but I think there are expectations for them to at least get back to a bowl game this year. Last year they went 7-6, won their bowl game. Expectations are that at the minimum. I think, expectations should be 8-9 wins for this team would be considered a successful season and kind of bringing Virginia Tech football back and becoming a potential power again, especially here in the ACC, where it sounds more and more like Clemson and Florida State want to leave. Virginia Tech could be, before we know it, the premier football brand in the ACC. Them, along with Miami, if they decide to stay there as well. But that's all a conversation for a different day. But I think the Hokies are in position to be back and competing in this expanded playoff, could be competing for a spot. Whether it's this year, it remains to be seen, but within these next few years, I think that's a trajectory that this Virginia Tech team is on. When we go back and look at their season last year, as we talked about, 7-6 overall. They went 5-3 in the ACC. They won their bowl game 41-20 over Tulane in the Military Bowl. Won 3 of 4 to close the year, though. So I think some good momentum heading into the year. Real interesting note when I was going through Virginia Tech's schedule and their games from last year. Average margin of victory in those 7 wins, 23.7 points per game. So when they were beating teams, they were beating up on these teams. And you kind of saw when they were at their best, when they were at their highest, what kind of football club they could be. 0-3 in one-score games. So you can also look at that and be like, all right, you flip that and maybe you're 2-1. You could be a 9-10 win team this year. I really think that the potential is there. Defense was stronger than the offense for the most part of the season, I think. Ranked top 20 in total defense and passing defense last year. So that was a strong group that returns a lot. We'll get into that, but returned 17 starters total, 8 on offense, 7 on defense, as well as their kicker and punter. So a team that finished the year with momentum, returned a lot of guys. They have a few guys that turned down NFL opportunities and are coming back to Virginia Tech to make a run at a potential ACC title this year. Offense, the unit got better as the season went on, became an exciting group that could put up points. Averaged 29.5 points per game across the entire season, their 13 games. But over those last 4 games where they went 3-1, they averaged 43 points per game. So we talked about 23.7 points per game was their average margin of victory in those 7 wins. Over their last 4 games where they went 3-1, they averaged 43 points per game over that time. So a really strong end to the season. And like I said at the beginning as well, when they're at their peak, they were one of the best teams in the entire ACC last year. The offense brings back 8 starters as well, headlined by quarterback Kyron Drones. He is a dual threat playmaker. He's a guy that's a really fun watch, and he's going to be a player that I think bursts out into the scene this year. Was playing like sparingly at the beginning of the year last year, and then he kind of got his feet wet, I think, and then they really threw him into the fire, and he struggled a little bit out of the gate. 2-4. 2-4 is what Virginia Tech started out last year, but as we talked about, won 3 of 4 to end the year, won their bowl game. So this is a team that has a lot of momentum, and you can really point to the quarterback spot with that as well, and what he's able to do with his legs and with his arm. A dual threat QB, as we talked about, was really good at taking care of the football. 17 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. Passing offense wasn't that strong last year, but it was a thing that, as we talked about, with 43 points per game over their last 4 games, the offense did get better and more explosive as the year went on, and I expect the passing offense to take a leap this year. Only ranked 95th in the country last year. To be an 8, 9, potentially 10-win team, they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit more and win those close games, I think, with some passing, as most teams have to do in those scenarios. But the rushing offense was really good. They ranked 22nd in the country at 189.8 yards per game. But when you have a QB with the legs like Drones, the passing offense isn't going to have to be as dynamic. But I do think to get to an ACC contender type of status, that is going to be an area that they have to kind of improve in. Kyron Drones did carry the ball double-digit times in 8 of their games last year. So it's a staple of their offense, whether they're all design runs or they're scrambles. That's, up for debate, or, up for the game script, but they're comfortable with giving him the football and saying, kind of go make a play with your legs, whether it's dropping back and he's scrambling and he has to run for a first down, or they're design runs that they'll do that as well. But he also rushed 15 plus times in 6 of their games. So very comfortable and trustworthy with the ball in his hands. I expect an advance in the passing game, though, as we talked about, and they also return 4 starting offensive linemen. So a lot of guys returning up front. That's always huge as well. Starting running back from last year. Tootin is back as well. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, but he was a starter. He's expected to be one of the better ACC backs this year. And they also return starting receivers Jalen Lane and Daquan Felton, 2 guys that played a lot of meaningful snaps for them last year. Another reason why I'm expecting the passing game to increase and be better than it was last year. This is a group, though, a lot of potential, and I think they'll look more like the team that averaged 43 points per game over those last 4 games. I'm not saying they'll put up that, but I think it's realistic for this team to be averaging 34, 35 points per game. They have the firepower. They have the returning pieces, the quarterback, the offensive line. Why not? Kyron Drones, 90-1 to win the Heisman. I think that's worth a stab, worth a swing. If this team does emerge and break through, he's going to be a major reason why. So really optimistic and bullish on this Virginia Tech offense heading into 2024. When you look at the defense now, this was a group that was a strength of the team for most of the year last year, and I'm expecting them to take another step up as well with what they returning 7 starters with players at all levels of the defense that have experience. They were 20th in total defense last year and were really strong against the pass. One of the best pass defenses in the country. Held opponents to 168.8 yards per game. That was 4th in the country. And in their 7 wins last year, they held opponents to an average of only 17.1 points per game. So we talked about it, where their average margin of victory in their wins, 23.7 points per game. And the defense in those wins was holding teams to only 17.1 points per game. So you can kind of put 2 and 2 together there, that when they were good, they were really good and really impressive squad. So this is a group that can play some elite ball, and you think with the returners, they should be in for a huge season. Antoine Powell-Ryland is a name to know for the Virginia Tech team off the edge. He's their go-to pass rusher, and we talked about it too with the pass defense. A really good secondary last year. 3 starters return, headlined by 2 potential NFL corners in Dorian Strong and Moonsoor Delane. That's a cool name that he's got there, but 2 starting corners are back. That's huge as well in college football in this day and age, when you're able to retain guys like that. Interior defensive line, too, added a pair of transfers up front with Aeneas Peoples from Duke and Kevin Gilliam Jr. from Oklahoma. So the defensive line adds 2 more pieces as well to a group that already has a lot of returning pieces. This defense, as we talked about at the beginning, has a lot of players at every level. So with Pry's defensive background as well, we talked about how he was the Penn State defensive coordinator before coming over here. He's a defensive guy. This unit should be in good shape. They gave up 34 points in 4 of their 6 losses last year, at least 34 points in 4 of those 6 losses. So when the defense was struggling, I don't think the offense was good enough last year to win those shootouts consistently throughout the year. But the offense got better and better as the year went on. That should give the defense confidence. And if they do have to get into the shootouts, I don't think there's as much pressure on the defense this year. I think the offense will be able to go out there and kind of win them some games and not really need the defense to shut them down completely. So look for this group to be an optimistic kind of turnover type of group. I expect a real aggressive defense out of this Virginia Tech squad this year. So very, very excited, very, very bullish on this Virginia Tech team. We'll bring up the schedule and go through game by game as we do with all the teams here in the college football preview. All right, Virginia Tech. Start out with Vanderbilt. You got to love that, I think. You got to hope you don't kind of fall into a trap there, but I think that's a win. You get out to 1-0. Marshall comes to town. I'm expecting 2-0 there. Old Dominion actually beat them in, I think it was Brent Pry's first game 2 years ago. So definitely a revenge type game, in-state game there. I know Virginia Tech got the better of them last year, but we give them 3-0. This is a really cool game, and I think I don't know the entire schedule for Saturday, September 21st. It says it's already sold out, but this is a game that I think would be cool that game day could potentially be at 2 3-0 squads, on the come up, potential breakthrough teams. I saw Kirk Herbstreit even said watch out for Rutgers as a potential kind of dark horse playoff team. So that could be a really fun and exciting game. I'm going to give Virginia Tech the win there though at home. Look for that to be a night game. That'll be a really cool one. Then they go to Miami. I'm going to give them a loss there. Give them their first loss of the season. Miami, spoiler alert, is my pick to win the ACC this year. So that's going to be a tough one going on the road there. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities that Virginia Tech goes down there and wins. But I'm going to give Miami the win in that game. Stanford, that's a weird one, just kind of the West Coast, but I'll give Virginia Tech a win there. Boston College coming to town, give Virginia Tech another win. Georgia Tech's a team, over-under is only 5. I think they're going to be, a better team than that, maybe a 7-win squad, but another game at home. Virginia Tech, one of the best home field atmospheres in all of college football. I'm going to give them a win there. Syracuse, some people are expecting to be a little bit better, but I'm going to give Virginia Tech another win there. Clemson comes to town. I don't know just talent-wise, and I'm not that high on Clemson, but talent-wise overall, they're still, a peg above Virginia Tech. That's kind of why I was with Miami too. Even at Virginia Tech, that's going to be a pretty crazy game, pretty crazy atmosphere as well. Who knows what those teams' records look like, but that could be a potential game day game as well. I think game day really wants to get back to Blacksburg and Virginia Tech. But I'm going to give Clemson the win there. I don't think Virginia Tech might be quite there yet, even though Clemson, I think, is going to be kind of hovering around the same record that I have Virginia Tech projected as. But I'll give Clemson going in and getting a win there. Duke, we're going to go with Virginia Tech as well. Virginia, rivalry game, I'm going to go with Virginia Tech as well. But that wraps up a 10-2 regular season. That's an awesome season. I think Brent Pry's doing backflips. I think Kyron Jones is doing backflips. I think everyone in Blacksburg is really excited about that type of season and that type of success. When you look at the kind of the win totals on Vegas or in DraftKings, over under is 8.5. That number's gone up. That was at 8. It's at plus 105 now for 8.5. So, basically the same thing. You need to get that 9th win, but you don't get the push in this scenario, but you get it at plus money for the over, minus 125 for the under. I got them going 10-2, so I think this is going to be an overplay for me, getting that by 1.5. The schedule could potentially present 11 wins. There's not a game on there where I'm no shot. It's not like they have a Georgia on the schedule. Miami, who knows what to expect from them. I'm high on them, but they could be a flame out of 7-5, 6-6 team. Clemson, who knows what they're going to be this year. There's not a game on there that you got to look at that Virginia Tech schedule and be absolutely zero chance that they win that game. I think there's a good argument that they could be favored. See what happens with what Clemson is, but I think there's a chance that they're favored in every single game besides at Miami. I mean, there's a good chance in my mind that's the case. Favored in 11 out of 12 games. I think 11 wins should certainly be in the question, but I'm going to have them going at 10-2. They're plus 800 to make the playoff. The schedule isn't that great, so if they do go 10-2, I don't know if that gets them in. If they go 11-1, they'll be definitely in the playoff. So look at Virginia Tech there at a plus 800 potential stab to win the ACC as well. 10-1. I think that might be worth a look as well. You get the 10-1, they automatically make it if they do win the ACC. But I think I would probably just, at that case, take the 8-1. You get the kind of wild card scenario as well. So that's my take on Virginia Tech. I think they have a breakthrough year this year, and whether they make the playoff or not remains to be seen. But maybe next year kind of sets them up to really break through and maybe even be like the favorite in the ACC going into the 2025 season. But breakthrough year for Virginia Tech. Expecting big things, and going to be an exciting team to watch and follow this year. But as always, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and we'll talk soon.